We've reached the part of the offseason where NBA news is at a bit of a lull, with Summer League now being finished, free agency hype dying down, and trade rumors coming about less frequently, but that doesn't mean that teams are done shaking things up by any means. Between now and the start of the year, all signs are still pointing to a few huge trades going down, and that's what Bleacher Report addressed in a recent article where they proposed 4 hypothetical blockbuster trade ideas they think are still going to happen this offseason. And as always, I'll be going through each one, analyzing whether or not they make sense, why or why not the teams involved would want to do them, and who benefits the most from them. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first proposal from the article is between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz, where the Thunder receive Lauri Markkanen in exchange for Nikola Topic, Ousmane Dieng, Kenrich Williams, 3 first-round picks, and 3 second-round picks. The Thunder have been sitting on a massive treasure chest of assets over the last few years now, and the feeling around the league is that people are just waiting to see what they unload it on. They realistically could involve themselves in any trade situation involving a star on the trade block, and Lauri Markkanen is exactly that, plus he's an incredibly fluid fit on their team on paper. Markkanen is a 7-footer that can play either forward position with a versatile offensive repertoire as a lights-out shooter that can also attack off the dribble and exploit mismatches with his size and skill. The Thunder have built a hungry young squad ready to legitimately contend with a defense-first mentality, but they could still definitely use another offensive spark alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and by adding Markkanen, I genuinely think they could be as good as anybody in the league. But with all of that being said, is this enough to land him? In my opinion, it absolutely is, but the Jazz have been a bit stingy in trade discussions to this point. Markkanen is in the last year of his current contract, which really changes a lot about how much leverage the Jazz have in this discussion, and 3 first-round picks is a tremendous haul for a player in that position. Add in lottery pick Nikola Topic, who was in contention to be the #1 pick in this year's draft before his injury, along with 2 solid role players in Williams and Dieng, and I think this would be an offer that the Jazz would have to seriously take into consideration. It would just come down to whether they want Markkanen to be a part of their long-term future or not, but with him about to hit free agency a year from now. The next proposal from the article is between the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets, where the Magic receive LaMelo Ball in exchange for Anthony Black, Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, and 2 first-round picks. The Magic have found themselves linked to point guards all summer long because it honestly is one of their biggest needs, and finding a player that can kickstart their lackluster offense and make the lives of guys like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner easier would go a long way for them. They were the worst-ranked offense of the teams that made the playoffs last year, so while they've built a dominant defensive unit, bringing in a player who thrives off creativity and playmaking like LaMelo Ball would be a fantastic fit for them, providing 24 points and 8 assists per night. The Magic also played at the 4th slowest pace last season, so LaMelo would help push the pace more in transition, generating easier baskets, and they have the defensive firepower elsewhere to overcome LaMelo's defensive woes. That's all fine and good, but the Hornets also have to accept the trade for it to actually happen, and I just struggle to see why they would do something like this. LaMelo is locked up long-term, with him being under contract through 2029, and he's still at the heart of what the Hornets are trying to build. So to give up on your franchise cornerstone, who had already been an all-star at 20 years of age, would be head-scratching to say the least. Star players locked into long-term contracts have been traded for way more than a few role players and 2 first-round picks over the last few years, and taking LaMelo's age into account, he's easily worth a bigger price tag than this. The next proposal from the article is a doozy, being a 3-team deal between the Clippers, Timberwolves, and Nets, where the Clippers receive Karl-Anthony Towns, the Timberwolves receive Cameron Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Terrence Mann, and a 2nd-round pick, and the Nets receive Norman Powell, Kobe Brown, Bones Highland, PJ Tucker, a 1st-round pick, and a 2nd-round pick. There's definitely a lot going on here, so we'll start with the highlight of the deal being Karl-Anthony Towns going to the Clippers. There's been rumblings for a few months now about Towns' future in Minnesota that were loudest during the talks of the team's ownership changing, but since then they've quieted down a bit. There are a few things playing into the rationale for a move, first being that sixth man of the year Naz Reid is ascending and could be ready for an even bigger role and could comfortably step into Towns' role. The second being that the Wolves may want to invest more into modern power forwards instead of forcing Towns into that position that he's naturally not used to. Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith both fit that traditional power forward mold and are more reliable 3-and-D forwards that improve the team's depth drastically. The Clippers are also looking for a Paul George replacement and need more firepower in their front court, so I really like the fit there as well. The Nets get involved to help the money work and to collect a first-round pick, so overall the structure here is intriguing, but ultimately I can't fully get on board with the Timberwolves doing this trade. Despite everything I said about why they may want to explore something like this, the return here is just not worth it in my opinion. Towns is still under contract through 2028, and 3 role players and a second-round pick is in no world enough to sway the Timberwolves here. In today's NBA, multiple first-round picks need to be coughed up to even open the door to trade for a star player, and while the players fit well into what the Wolves could be looking for in return, they need more to truly pique the ears of the team's front office. And finally, the last proposal from the article is between the New York Knicks and the Houston Rockets, where the Rockets receive Julius Randle in exchange for Jabari Smith Jr., Jock Landale, Jeff Green, and a first-round pick. The Rockets showed good progress last season in their first year under Ime Udoka, but they still have a ways to go to get back into the mix in a stacked Western Conference. Julius Randle is a multiple-time All-Star and member of the All-NBA team who can really fill it up in a number of ways, but his playstyle has also been criticized for being too ball-stopping, and his playoff history is pretty poor, so the belief is that teams may be able to buy low on him in a trade if interest was truly there. The Rockets are an intriguing landing spot for him because of how they need a true go-to scorer to really elevate themselves, but I personally don't like the fit between him and Rockets center Alperen Sengun at all. Randle dominates the ball a lot in order to be most effective, and Sengun is a rising star with outstanding passing and playmaking instincts for a center, so realistically a lot of the team's offense should be flowing through him moving forward, and that may not be fully possible with Randle in the mix. Defensively, it's also a huge downgrade, replacing Jabari Smith with Randle, and the Rockets were just a top 10 defense last season, so that may not be a sacrifice that they're willing to make. In a vacuum, this is probably fair value for Randle, and he's easily the best asset involved in the trade, but the context of the team construction and chemistry makes it a bit more murky, at least from my point of view. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these potential trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.